Welcome, photographers. This is Todd Lewis coming to you from Charles Lewis Photography in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today we are talking about something that we don't tend to talk about nearly as much as the business stuff. We're actually going to be talking about photography today. Photography, because guess what? In your photography business, your photography is important. Just because we talk mostly about the business side, the marketing, the selling, the pricing, the merchandising, all of that very important stuff that has the power to make you great profits in your photography business, it by no means means that the photography itself is not important. And you know what? I'm excited to get to talk photography today, but I'm especially excited because I get to have these two incredible photographers joining me and talking about it. First and foremost, my father, who's on the bottom of the screen there, Charles Lewis. Hello, Dad, and welcome.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Tom. And welcome. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, how excited are you to get to talk about photography a little bit for a change?
Oh, it's fantastic because that's our first love is photography and creating beautiful images. It's great.
It sure is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, great to have you here. And the two of you know far more about this stuff than I do, although I've learned an awful lot that I've applied to being a cinematographer in addition to working in the photography industry. And it's amazing the how much the principles are almost identical in cinematography and photography. Tom Morelli from Brewer, Maine, photographer who's making great profits in his photography business every single day, including right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But Tom, how excited are you to get to talk about photography today?
This is great because, so often we talk about marketing and merchandising and all the things that keep the phone ringing, and how to properly run your business. But you do have to have a portrait photography business that produces something that's maybe a next step above what your clients and prospects can produce at home. Something with that wow factor, something where they look fantastic and they just can't do by themselves. Gives you that little leg up over somebody that's just sort of a point and shoot, to use a bad term.
You bet. Absolutely. Well, let's show some posing here. Oh, wait, what is this? What are we looking at here? Okay, we had to have a little bit of fun here to start us off with. Taking a look at an old photograph here of a camera room circa, I don't know, the Middle Age? No, not quite that.
Middle Ages.
We're talking the turn of the previous century here.
Yes.
And look at that poor child there. That poor child. Does that look like a comfortable pose? Now, today we're going to be talking, obviously we're talking how to pose groups perfectly every time. Okay, but I wanted to start with this because Tom is such a big part of what he does in addition to family portraiture is baby photography. And I found these two images on Tom's Facebook page, and I wanted to contrast that photograph. I love old-time photographs, by the way. There's something about old-time photographs that just really pull me in. But I think we can all agree that photograph of that baby doesn't look nearly as lovely and natural and wonderful as this image here. Tom, talk a little bit about that image there just very quickly and why you love doing what you do so much.
Well, first of all, the late 1800s baby, that probably that dress looked great once that baby grew up and got married in the same dress. That is what you call a mega christening gown. Yeah, nowadays baby portrait photography is all about being natural. And what people see is that peaches and cream skin tones and that softness and that baby sleeping. It's really important to capture those things. And so our baby plan is really busy with that type of photography as well. And we also photograph a lot of families within the baby plan. That's what pertains to today.
Yeah, the same principles apply to family photography as they do to the baby photography, obviously. And that's kind of why I wanted to share that. I loved juxtaposing and showing how important the pose is, the expression, all of that. I mean, that one baby, there's just no comparison into which one of those is going to elicit the true emotion. Now, first of all, we got to talk about why you should listen to us, why you should listen to three guys who, let's not kid ourselves, we're not spring chickens. We're also not 1 foot in the grave either. We've got great energy. We've got great passion. But most importantly, we also have great experience. Our years and years in the photography business means that we have found the things that work and work extraordinarily well, no matter what else is going on in the world, no matter what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the photographic industry itself. And that's why, in my opinion, you shouldn't be seeking out the people who are just the newbies, who's the newest, latest, doing the newest, latest, greatest stuff, because it hasn't necessarily been proven to work over years, over decades, over generations. So what we pride ourselves in is being on the cutting edge of the technology aspect of everything, but doing it always first and foremost from a point of how does this stuff really work? How does it work to bring us the right types of clients that we love, the types of clients that we want to work with, and do it time and time again? So I wanted to start the program out first and foremost by saying why you should listen to us, because you should be asking yourself that very important question. All right, next up, why does your photographic business exist? Now, when we're talking the business side, it becomes obvious why we're asking this question. Why does your photo business exist? Because your answer should be it exists to give yourself the lifestyle that you want to have. The sense of security, the profitability, a sustainability in your business, and being able to do that on the hours that you want to work each week. But now we're talking photography. Why is this so important when it comes to your photography itself? Well, because that's why you became a photographer in the first place. You probably didn't become a photographer because you saw this as a way to get rich quick. You did it because something about the world of photography lit a fire under you, and you wanted to make that the way you make your living. So, Dad, I want to turn it to you first. Why did you become a photographer in the first place?
Oh, I love photography. Absolutely loved photography. And back when I was still in college, I started my own little photography business just because I loved it so much. But then I figured out that if you really work at this and look at the business side of it as well as the artistic side of it, you can earn a darn good living doing something you love to do. I mean, what better is that? And that's why I'm here.
And again, but the reason he got into it is the love and the passion for the photography itself. Tom, how about you? Why did you get in the photography business in the first place?
This really fits in with today's subject. I found that as I was doing my little amateur photography in high school, that people really responded, oftentimes with tears, at seeing their images of their babies or their families together, because really that's what means the most to all of us is our loved ones. So for me, portrait photography rather than product photography really appealed because I loved the reaction I got from the people that are in the portraits.
Absolutely. So the important thing is to always remember to remind yourself of why you got in the photographic business in the first place. And that's what I'm touching on here, is the balance between a profitable, successful business and the love of why you're doing it. And we always want to find that good balance. And what we're talking about today with posing groups fits very nicely into that, because how you pose your groups is a double-edged sword. It's a two-sided coin, right? On one side of that coin, you've got, how do I like to pose groups? Do I like to have them be candid and be just running around in a field and have it be very action oriented? Or do I like to have them very specifically and beautifully posed and positioned so that the composition itself looks incredible, or somewhere in between? That's on one side. What do you like to do as an artist? The other side of that coin is, what does your target market want? What does your target market want? Because that's the business side, right? Now, if you can find a way to balance those two and have both sides of those coin be the same thing, you're living in a perfect world. But oftentimes what your clients are going to want is not necessarily what you love to do the most, right, Dad?
Right on. The real important thing here is to listen to your clients. You can guide them as to the clothing, the makeup, the hair, the location, the posing, all that stuff. But, you want to find out what people want and then help them to get that they want.
Absolutely. And Tom has made this the cornerstone of his business as well, is finding that balance between what he loves to do and what the clients, the target market, that's the key, knowing your target market. Everything we're going to be talking about and showing you today through the images we show you and the strategies that Tom has put together of posing them and so forth are all designed to appeal to our target market, not to appeal to everyone because nobody's got the same taste, but we've figured out exactly what our target market is, who our target market is, and we're going to make sure that we're appealing to them in every possible way. All right. So again, why'd you become a photographer in the first place? You did it because you love the photography. Now let's make sure you're making a great living by combining that photography with great business sense and appealing to our target market each and every time. Now, how is this working for you, Tom? So maybe you could just, take a minute or two to talk about a recent a family portrait session, let's say a group, okay, photographic session that you did. How was that process? How was doing the photographic session itself? And then what was that sale like?
Yeah, boy, I got a ton of examples. Just recently, I was photographing a family. They'd had a recent high school graduate that I photographed. There were 6 people in the family, 2 dogs, which I love, and proper preparation made it so it was all really fun. We did several subgroups. We did all kinds of things that made it meaningful to them, like going to their home. And this ended up in a 4-figure sale, which is $2,900, including a wall size that they love that's in their home. Looks beautiful. They were thrilled. They got some gift sizes, and that happens regularly. That's not an exception to the rule by any means.
I mean, that's great. $2,900 sale. Now, for some photographers, that seems impossible. How could you ever make that much money from one portrait session? For others, they might be, well, I can make even a little bit more than that. $2,900, I don't think there's anyone that's watching this video that wouldn't love to have that. Now, how does that fit within your typical average, would you say, for a family or group portrait session?
The average for that type of group is $2,840. I looked up the numbers before we did this. So that was kind of right on beam. There's sort of a theme there with that size group. Larger groups, often it's a larger investment. Smaller groups are maybe a little less than that. Depends on what the makeup of the group is.
Okay, great. So you can see, and this is right now. This is happening right now. And I wanted to find out, how is this working for Tom? Again, why you're listening to us, years and years of experience. And when you see the portraits, you're going to see the exact types of portraits that Tom is doing on a regular basis to appeal to that target market. So first off, let's kind of roll over the process here a little bit. Tom, at the design consultation chat, part of what you do during that design consultation is you find out the number of people in the group, their relationships to each other, their ages, etc., so that you can start pre-planning the posing. Kind of just give us a 30 to 60 second overview of kind of what that's like. We're going to get into more detail about it in a bit.
Yeah, this sort of breaks the ice. This allows people to decide if you're the right photographer. And once they've made that decision, it allows you to find out exactly what they're looking for. And we have different samples and so forth that they can look at and tell me their likes and dislikes. It also lets me know ahead of time how to prepare to photograph that group. So there's the day of the photography, there's no guesswork.
Right, absolutely. That design consultation is a very important step, both for the sale and for preparing for the photographic session itself. Okay, so the next key point to keep in mind here is that you're going to actually, this may come as a surprise to some photographers, that you're actually going to physically draw a plan of where to put each person in the group. Now, Tom, I'm guessing there are probably a lot of photographers out there that don't take this step. Why is this step so important to you?
This is really fun, actually. I do this visually, mentally in my head, but sometimes somebody will say, we've got a group of 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and this is not in front of the client. This is when I'm alone planning this out. Start with one head and then another couple, and just do this tonight. Start doing this after this program and add people. How many people can I get in here following the principles we're going to talk about in a few minutes here, and try to set it up so it looks pleasing? Can you draw it and not put 8 people in a straight line, but do something interesting? That way, when you arrive at the session, you already kind of have an idea in your head. This kind of looked like a nice arrangement of that number of people. You don't always have to do that, but I think it really helps just to sit down and sketch it out and try to figure out where you're going to put people.
Right, because every second that you can save during the photographic session itself, where you don't have to be doing that pre-planning stuff, is time that you can spend with the client. Right. Getting the right expressions, getting them comfortable, making sure they're comfortable together. That's what we want to be spending our time on, not going, well, okay, now I got you all here. Should I put you there and put you there? You don't want to be, that all needs to be done ahead of time. And doing that through that, drawing it out kind of thing is really wonderful. Now, Tom, you're going to show us an example of that coming up here, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I did a quick little sketch, and we'll look at some other things here. Where you physically draw out ahead of time, and what you're going to see me draw actually ended up being a real group.
Yeah, and spoiler alert: you don't have to be a good sketch artist in order to be able to do this. And it doesn't take long. You'll see how Tom does it here in just a moment. So physically draw out that plan. And do you do that for each? So if as we're going to talk about in a minute, you're going to maybe break them up into other groups. Do you do that for the smaller groups as well as the larger groups?
You can do that. I've done this for so many years that I don't really find it necessary. But looking within that group, I already know the relationships, so I already kind of know what I'm going to do. I don't just show up and do potluck photography. There
you go. And next up, it's not about the quantity of poses. It's about getting 2 or 3 really great ones. That's all it takes. So many photographers think, I got to do all sorts of setups, so it makes it seem like I'm busy and like we've done a whole ton of. They don't care about that. And neither should you. All that they're going to care about is getting that 1 or 2 images that they adore. Our best sale that we ever had, we had 1 great image to show them. And that's all it took. Got us the best sale that we've ever had before. Right, Dan?
That's right. Yeah, and another important point here is that you arrive early enough on the location, or you prep your studio if you're doing it there, so that you can set up the needed posing helpers and lighting. And Tom's going to talk about the posing helpers and stuff in just a minute, but you want to allow yourself enough time to be able to create something really stunning.
Yeah, that's absolutely what this is about. You've got posing helpers that are going to help you with that. We're going to show you some that Tom uses and how he utilizes them in each of the images. So make sure you're bringing posing helpers with you. And then, of course, you've got whatever auxiliary lighting gear you might need as well to supplement whatever wonderful lighting Mother Nature has given you on that particular day. And always bring more equipment and posing helpers than you think you may need, because it's better to have them and not need them than wish you'd had them and you don't have them there. All right, next up here, the next step in this whole process is the goal is to make everyone look great by themselves and also within the group. They must look the very best that they've ever looked, or at least at this point in their lives, okay, while still looking natural and looking like themselves. When you can do that, that right there is what earns you your money. That's what makes the difference between what we do as fine portrait photographers and somebody who takes something with a high pixel smartphone or even digital SLR camera and then applies some sort of filter to it that makes them look, painted, but not like themselves. We want them looking like themselves, natural, capturing those images, those relationships between everybody. So again, make them look great by themselves. If you singled each person out in this image, you could almost take that and make a single portrait of that person by themselves. But then when you put them together, they all look beautiful, largely because of the way the poses are done here. And we'll show you how he created. We might even be showing you that actual image coming up here. I'm not sure, but one with certainly a lot of people in it. Start with the center of the group and work out to the edges. Tom, why is this so important?
Family photography is all about relationships. That's why they called you in the first place, because they love each other and there is a family structure. And a lot of times, if you're very fortunate, it might even be great grandparents or grandparents, and then moms and dads, and then the children. And so I always start as sort of the revered spot. I take the eldest, I don't say this to them, but grandparents, and build around them to show that family structure. And I'll jokingly say, if it wasn't for you two, I'd have the day off. And they all laugh because the whole family's there because of me photographing them, and they started this lovely family that's their descendants. So always start in the middle and work out. Plus, you want to make sure the group is properly constructed, as we're going to look at, and that's where to start. And then as you add on, you'll see the group start to form. If you try to start it on either end, it's like baking a cake halfway, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. The next key point, which ties into that a little bit, is to try to avoid rows where there's a lot of space between people posed in the front, middle, and back. You don't want to have them stacked like rows. You want to have nice levels to it and so forth. And Tom's going to show kind of some examples of that again. And it makes a massive difference in the quality of the work. And again, making your work stand out from the snapshots that somebody might take. We're professionals, and it's the posing that makes up a massive part of what sets professional images apart from amateur images. The posing and the lighting are so very important. The next key point here to keep in mind is to be careful to keep all the faces relatively equidistant from the camera lens. This is a huge one. We're going to talk more detail about this in a minute, but basically this is, first of all, to make sure that they're all in focus. You want to make sure that every face is in focus, and sometimes it's hard to tell. No matter how large of a screen you might have or a monitor there or whatever you're utilizing, it can be really hard to tell that each and every one of them is super sharp. So make sure you take the time to make sure that they are all equidistant from the camera lens. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do that a little bit later here, but we've got a trick that is the most low-tech trick. Some of you may have heard of this. Some of you may still use it. It's the best thing we have ever found for making sure that everyone is equidistant from the lens, and we'll show you exactly what that is in just a minute here. All right, next up here, no heads next to each other on the same level. In addition to the rows, the back and the forth and so forth, you want to make sure that you don't have heads that are on the same level. The example what we're showing here is, yes, the two guys are close in level, but you can see the guy on the left, screen left, is a little taller than the guy on screen right. So you got heads on different levels. And that's where posing helpers can become very helpful as well. You can get people on different levels, especially when you get larger groups. Then you can have somebody sitting on something, somebody on this little posing helper here to get their head size a little bit lower. The heads on, again, this is one of the big mistakes that I see a lot of amateur photographers that are wanting to be professionals, but they're not quite there yet, is they're stacking people next to each other, and it just does not look pleasing to the eye at all. So very important to keep that in mind. All right, next up here, use the pleasing pyramid posing principle. Tom, very quickly, what is this principle? We're going to show them examples of this and go into more detail in just a bit.
There's lots of reasons to like this, but basically it gives you a base. So the family looks like they're kind of structured in a way they're not going to tip over or fall over, and they're not heavy on one side or the other. And the pyramid, there are other shapes, but the pyramid is really the one I default to the most because it's easy to build when you start in the middle and add people on. And it's just pleasing to the eye, and it usually allows people to lean in and be close, look like there's closeness in the family, which is another part of it. A lot of times I see people doing poses and people are standing far apart. They're not close to each other, and that's not what you want to show.
Right. And a huge money-making point on all of this, and this is a huge one, is make sure that you break down the large groups into smaller groups as well as you're going forward. Don't just photograph the large family. Take that large family, break them down into the subgroups within that family, if you will, and make sure you photograph them. That's a huge money-making point. You don't want to miss that. We'll show you more examples here in just a minute of exactly how Tom does that. Okay, so now that's what to do. Now let's dive into exactly how to do it. So first and foremost, we're going to show you a number of images in each of these areas that we just talked about. We're going to show you the principles that we just revealed, but in a visual way that will make everything super clear to you. And Tom is also going to share, as we promised, the sketching pre-plan, so you can see exactly how this helps so very much, and of course, much, much more. So here we go. Let's dive right into our first major point here.